Hello friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Wise. Today we are at the next topic, that is the control of open file, and we are at the second position of our topic. So let's get down to the position quickly. It is white to play. At first it looks like white is slightly behind in development. Black has 3 developed pieces, but it's an endgame and we see that white king is very active. So against 3 pieces we can count the king and the bishop here. The main factor which favors white is the fact that the c8 rook, which is very good for black, it's on the open file. It has no outright square to settle down. It has only the decent square c7. Apart from that, c6, c5, c4, c3, c2, c1 all are covered by white. Secondly, white's weakness is the bishop on f1. The pawns are on the white color and the bishop is also on the white color. So since the center pawns are fixed, we can say that this bishop is partly bad. But do note that white has lot of space in the position. So this bishop cannot be considered bad. e3 bishop is very strong, and we see the same thing with black's g7 bishop, which is looking very strong, but once white places the pawn on b3, that bishop will have nothing to do on the long diagonal. Another good thing about these pawns is that the f6 knight doesn't have a good post. So white starts with the plan of getting his rook to the c file and try to occupy that open file. Very well, in some cases the rooks will be traded, but then the bishops will become very powerful. Generally it is said that 2 bishops are slightly superior to bishop and knight. But for that there are certain conditions. Like the center should be open, one of the bishop amongst the 2 should not be bad, and of course the knight's placing matters a lot. So white goes here with the very strong move g3. At first an innocuous move which does nothing, but the idea is to drive this rook away from the c8 square with the move bh3. Let's look at some lines. Of course, we should note that ba7 would have given nothing after rook a8. So white is trying to use the ba7 idea once the rooks are traded. If black plays a6 to get rid of the attacked pawn, then white continues bishop h3, rook c7. Of course, rook c4 will be driven with b3. So rook settles on c7 and white trades the rooks here. Black is compelled to exchange the rook. After the exchange of rook, we see that there are severe problems. White is already threatening bishop c8, winning one of the pawns. Black has to play the move b5, when after the very strong b4, we see that bishop c8 is unstoppable and the pawn on a6 would be lost. This is where we see the power of the bishops. Here we can say that the pawns are not totally fixed in the center, and we can consider this as a winning position for white. That is the reason I have taken this as the first variation, because c file is where white is trying to place his rook, and the problem with black is trading of rook is also not solving his problem. Black's best option perhaps would be knight d7, improving the knight from d7 to c5 or the e5 squares. Bishop attacks b2. But white can go with the move bh3 nevertheless, pinning the knight, rook c7 forced, and this position is very much similar to the game, but here white has the possibility of going bishop d7, rook d7 and rook c1, whereby he gets the open file and he gets a fabulous position. After bishop takes b2, white still controls the file. After rook c8 check, kg7, bishop into a7, and we can say still white is the only one who controls the open file, and this position should be favorable for him. He can plan to get his king from c2, b3, a4, b5, b6 and harass the b7 pawn. After any move like king f8, still there is bishop h3, rook c4, b3. Now the rook is confined to the only square c7, and here white can simply take the pawn on a7, and he also threatens to go bishop b6, which might trap the black rook on c7. So this position also we can say is clearly better or winning for white. In the game black played rook c7, white goes bishop h3. Idea is of course rook c1, black plays nd7, and we reach the same situation we just discussed. Bishop d7, rook d7, rook c1 was interesting here, but white went with the idea of keeping his bishop pair. He goes with rook c1. One advantage is converted into another one. Rooks get traded, and after rook c1, king supports the b2 pawn, and now there are threats. One is taking on a7, other the knight on d7 is hanging. So black goes nb6. After the move nc5, white can consider the move kc2, stopping nd3, followed by b4. When we see that the position is clearly better, if a6, then bishop c8, again threatening b4. White is clearly better here. Black goes nb6 in the game. Again kc2, b3 was also very strong. King f8, b3, controlling the c4 square. And now after ke8, the pawns and bishops start harassing the knight. There comes a4. The threat is a5 now. The knight has no safe place. c8 is guarded by the bishop. This is how the bishop and pawns, they harass the knight. First they stop the knight's entry into the position, usually with the pawns, putting them on the opposite color of the bishop, and then driving the knight behind. Black had to go kd8, when after a5, knight c8, bishop into c8, king takes c8, bishop takes a7, and white converted the game easily. We get a bishop and a game here. One of the main plans could be playing kd3 followed by bd4 and trading the bishops, after which king and pawn game would be easily winning for white. I hope you are finding these lessons instructive and useful. Thanks for your time.